It's Ed in San Diego, and welcome back to Global TV Talk Show, unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Google Analytics just sent out a report to me that we've had audience since January 1 through yesterday, which is January 30, 4,500 audience views, they say. About 70% is US, but that's okay. We'll take it. So thank you all. And this is Stephen Howard, author of 22 books, and number 22 is taken off. It's called Humony, Humony. And here's the author, Stephen Howard.
Thank you, Ed. Good morning. Good to be with you again.
Thank you. Humony Leadership. That should we all hold hands and pray? Will that save companies and engagement and feedback?
No, I don't think it will. I don't think circles will work very well, but there are other ways of saving some companies and making the workplace a better environment, and that's what I want to talk about.
Okay, so Humony was a book. How long did it take you to actually write that book? I know you've been thinking about it for years, but the actual writing, and plus you have a life to lead, so I would think that it must have taken almost a year to get it together.
Yeah, it was about 9 months, 8.5 to 9 months, I think, start to finish. From the time I actually put the outline down on paper to the time I hit publish button, about 9 months.
So you and I had a conversation sometime last year about how to write a book, because how do you write 22 books and stay sane? And I know not all of them make money, but certainly they all become the best business card ever.
Yes. So
you said sometime, and I don't expect you to give away any secrets here on Global TV, but organizing yourself in your head into writing the chapters and writing 300 words a day, or if you have that kind of a schedule or a need, some days are more prolific, I'm sure, than others. But you once said organizing it is a trick, and each sub topic or tributary from the main river becomes a chapter, and then they just start adding up.
It does, and I grew up in Las Vegas, so the analogy I came up with one time was, this is for nonfiction books. I don't write fiction books, and so I couldn't tell you how to organize a fiction book. But for nonfiction books, I kind of thought, well, the top end cards in the deck of cards, playing cards, are the Jack, King, Queen, and King. So I took those four and said, okay, and there's 4 suites. Obviously, you got your hearts, your clubs, your diamonds, and spades. So I said 4 suites. Those are your 4 key messages. So I tell people, sit down, write what are the 4 key messages you want somebody to take away from your book. And then you take your Jack, Queen, King, and Ace, I guess, and what are the 4 key supporting messages for each of those 4 big messages. So now you end up with a 4x4 matrix, 4 big messages, 4 major supporting messages. So for instance, let's say one of your messages was to give better feedback to an employee, or skills on feedback. One of them might be about the listening skills, that would be, and then the other one might be about authentic, and one might be setting up the environment. And those are 3 of the 4, for instance. So you get a 4x4 matrix that gives you 16 chapters. So you got 4 major sections of your book, you got 16 chapters, and that's just a start. And it's going to change as you write. You're going to move things back and forth and around. And, some books will come out as 17 chapters. Some might come out as only 13. It doesn't matter. But for me, and I work with a lot of authors. In fact, I just spent this weekend with somebody I'm going to co-write a book with. And we did the same thing. We sat down, we ended up with 16 Post-it notes and posted them on the wall. And we've got the book organized, and it'll change. But at least we're organized. At least we know where we want to head.
So you mentioned the Ace, the King, the Queen, and the Jack. And, conceptually, to me anyway, at this 8 a.m. hour here, is when I think of that organization, that alignment, if you will, I think of Superman as A, or Superwoman.
Mhm.
And then the king means, well, a designated CEO or COO. And then the queen is, the board member and rising star. And, the jack is, somebody out of Harvard or Yale who's, smart, but has no experience.
Well, I guess you just organized the company. I guess you organized the company as well as a book that way. Now, if you did that way, you'd have your four major board members and your four smart people, and you'd end up with a team of 16. Maybe that's a way of launching a company. I'll take the same idea.
Okay, so when it comes to leadership, are you talking corporate leadership or you're talking people leadership?
I talk people leadership, and the book Humany Leadership is really for everybody. My definition of leaders, if you lead other people. But basically everyone's a leader. Even if you're a research scientist working independently, you have to lead yourself. At the end of the day, you have to motivate yourself. You have to, lead yourself, prioritize what you're working on. So in many respects, everyone's a leader. But the nice thing about the Humany leadership concept, it also applies to your personal life. If you're coaching a sports team, say a kids sports team, or if you're working in your community, or if you're on a board of directors of a nonprofit or a startup operation, the skills are transferable into your personal life as well as your professional life. So this is not a book for the C-suite of organizations. It's for pretty much anybody who leads other people.
So Humany Leadership, that's Humony. That's now a website, right?
Yeah. Humany Leadership is a website just to kind of talk about the philosophy of Humany and some of the key points, and as a place to contact me. But it's kind of becoming not movement's probably too big of a word at this stage, but there's certainly a lot of interest in people starting to refer others to the concept. And so I built a very small website just to help people get their heads around the idea.
I was on it the other day. Okay, so you have been blessed. You've been honored with a gold medal award from the Nonfiction Authors Association, and their press release said, amongst other things, that Humany Leadership is timely in an understatement, which means it looms big. So sort of like blindfolded and you're touching the elephant. What does it mean?
I guess it means the realization that coming out of the pandemic, things have changed, obviously, and people need to lead in a different style. I mean, look, I'll be the first to admit, it's going to be difficult for some people, particularly, those who are, 45 plus, the baby boomers who've been very successful doing things kind of the my way or the highway route, but they're going to have to change. They'll be successful short term, but it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them in high employee turnover. It's going to cost them in workplace illnesses and workplace drama and instability. And so, the cost of the results that they're achieving are not worth it anymore. That's what's changed. So I think the reviewer basically was saying that to say that this is a timely message is an understatement because it is very timely. It's something we really need to do, and people need to pause and think about how are we going to lead going forward, because things have changed.
So these words that I'm going to read here are from this award, Humany Leadership, Mindsets, Skills and Behaviors for Being a Successful People-Centric Leader. I remember hearing those 20 years ago, those words, but it's a different way of looking at it, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think only you might have been one of the few that heard them. Very few people were speaking them 20 years ago. I mean, the focus is more like how to lead based on what the stock prices change in the last 3 hours. What do you do? How do you adapt to the stock price changing? So you were lucky if you heard them 20 years ago.
Well, I heard them, but I didn't get it. People-centric. Well, what does centric mean? Wait.
People-centric really is the concept. It's a mindset change that says, hey, before we make a decision, let's just stop and pause and think about what's going to be the impact on our people first. And using the word people, and think about, we don't have human resources. We don't have employees. We don't have team members. We have people working for us. We have humans. And so is it really mandatory that we do things in this fashion if it's going to have a negative impact on them, on their relationships internally, their relationships outside the company, on their mental well-being, or pause and think about that. So, you ask somebody today at typically say, what are your people costs of your running your business? And they'll say, oh, it's my salaries, overtime, medical care, annual leave, the employment taxes I have to pay, and that's all true. But the other cost is the cost of the mental well-being of your people, how many sick days. I mean, if you have the right environment, you're going to reduce the number of sick days that you have. When you reduce your sick days, for a couple of years, your medical insurance costs are going to come down. So there are other costs that I'm trying to get people to think about besides just what you see on the balance sheet or on the quarterly expense statement.
Now, the costs of people leaving, not just like the great quit, but just what, somebody ghosting.
Yeah,
I mean, just the cost to replace, never mind the disruption.
the cost to replace for years has been shown in research to be like 150% of somebody's salary. So somebody making $80,000 a year, it's going to cost you another $40,000 to replace them. That's your recruitment costs, your advertising costs, your interviewing costs. You have to fly them in for an interview, their onboarding costs, as well as all the lost productivity time. And quite frankly, there's still 4 million people who've resigned in December. I mean, we're still seeing the Great Resignation happening to us. Quite frankly, you can't grow your business, whether that's a company or whether that's your department, if one of your key priorities is replacing lost employees. I mean, if that's one of your focus, you come in, tomorrow's February the 1st, you start off February the 1st, and you got to replace 3 people who resigned in January, and that's your focus. How are you going to grow your business? You don't have time to do everything.
So let's talk about what's just been happening in the tech business, all these layoffs. So a lot of these people, not all, but many of them are green card holders, which means they're probably from India or some other place, but they're hired because they were good, they were techs, and they could help solve company problems. So maybe when all these tech companies, the biggest names, are they don't need them anymore because they already contributed. And so now what, robots are taking over? I mean, how are they going to do this? And now where are these people going to go? A lot of them have to leave the country if they don't get jobs soon. And
that's your people costs. I mean, how are you uprooting families? How are you uprooting communities? And the what's the word? I forget what the economic word is, but people, those people are going to spend less at their local grocery store. They're going to spend less at the movie theater. They're going to, they're not going to drive as much. The impact on your local community is just going to be devastating. And this is what drives me nuts. And this is where I'm going to use the word tone deaf. For instance, recently, executives are tone deaf. Microsoft, the day before they laid off 10,000 people, held a concert in Davos for 50 people. And the articles say executives. I don't know whether they were Microsoft employees or maybe they were some customers, whatever. A concert from the entertainer Sting for 50 people the night before they laid off 10 ,000 people. I mean,
well, they must have paid Sting $1 million.
Well, that's my point. Whatever they paid him, and whatever, and to think about that, if they were all Microsoft employees, 50 Microsoft executives are in Davos at one time. What is the cost of that? Your travel and budget and everything else for those 50 people to be at Davos. And I'm not saying it's a wrong decision. I'm saying just think about that. And when you're going to lay off 10,000 people the next day, how does that look? And does that make sense? Could you have had only 25 people at Davos? Could you have saved half of your expenses and maybe not need to lay off everybody? So it's the way people are running companies, the way people are not thinking about what is the cost going to be to their people and now to their communities, to their image, their brand image, and on and on. It's just like I said, they were tone deaf.
So I know you're not an expert in mobility functions and all that stuff, talent mobility, but that's taken a hit now too. It's actually been under change for a long time. The pandemic, of course, exacerbated it. But now the companies are looking at it because Zoom works.
Yeah.
Google Meets works, or Teams, whatever. And, I could sit here in San Diego and I could produce a teleconference in Asia Pac. And I'm not going to spend $20,000 to get there and stay there and do all that. And so I'm not spending a dime. I'm sitting here doing Zoom. Okay. And yet the impact, if you do it right, if you're media trained and coached and curated on how to act, or how to look, like I'm looking at the green light more often than I'm looking at you on the screen. And so that's a good thing. And I don't go and ooh, and I don't do too much scratching on camera. It's very effective, and it's almost like being in the room. And yet there's many people, no names, I won't be given here, who are not media in tune, or they purposely don't want to be. And that's a loss. And so the whole idea of who's the leaders and what are they doing, especially with the incoming robots, who are definitely going to be doing jobs that people used to do. Not everyone.
Mhm.
Like, they'll never replace me on global TV talk show.
Of course not. Of course not.
But I might have one on my desk over there.
Hopefully they don't replace your guests either. Hopefully you're not interviewing robots 5 years from now.
Well, maybe I'll be able to tell the difference on how they
Hopefully.
respond. So it says here in this honor that you got, this book award, the pre-pandemic normal versus the harmony culture chart on pages 299 and 300 is an especially helpful visual of what such a humany environment would look like. So would you like to deep dive onto page 299 and 300? I don't have it in front of me, but
There it is. There's the chart there.
Okay, that's easier to read.
I just did a comparison, the pre-pandemic normal versus what I call the harmony culture. And the humany, just said for your audience here, humany is a word I created that uses the roots of humanity, and harmony. And so one of my focus here is that the need to create harmony in the workplace. And most people say there is no such thing. I said, yeah, you're right, but there could be. So for instance, the pre-pandemic normal, you perform your work in the employee's designated workplace. A harmony culture, you work anywhere as personally suited, obviously, as long as you're getting your tasks done, and that your task includes how you collaborate with other people. Pre-pandemic normal, you used a company-owned desktop computer and it stayed in the office place. Well, today everyone's using mobile devices, cloud storage, access from remote. That is and if you do that properly, you can be more harmonized. I mean, pre-pandemic, if you did have to have a crisis and you needed access to data, you'd have to go back into your workplace at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning, because everything was stored on the desktop computer or on-site servers. Now it's in the cloud. The pre-pandemic normal for many people, routine and boring work, repetitive work. Now more customized work, requiring thoughts, requiring input, often requiring thoughts and input collaboratively. So these are some of the changes that I put on that little chart at the end of the book to kind of summarize the benefits, so to speak, of a harmony workplace compared to what many people experienced before 2020.
So you're iterating or curating, changing what's already in place, and just using some sandpaper to smooth out the rough edges, that kind of thing. Well, I'm doing the same thing in my shop here by starting Global Press Club, which is a subscription at $1.88 a day, and that's the end of the sales pitch. But what it is that I'm basically learning how to be a coach of public relations services and products as applied to my media, my owned and operated media, which is globalbusinessnews.net, globaltvtalkshow.com, globalradiotalkshow.com, and a couple of other things that'll be announced soon. So members, subscribers, get to be my guests on repetitive shows, radio, TV. We run ads for them. We publish their news, company news or blog every month that they're a member. And they're on a group show too, and they're introduced to people, much like you've seen it happen. And so this is an organized system of applying learnings, some upskill, reskill about how you think about media, such as I was just saying with you, about being camera ready and looking good or looking the best you can, and utilizing human honesty and authenticity in communicating with people from across time and space. Like, for instance, you are in Central Time Zone. I'm in the Pacific Time Zone. It's 2 hours, right? It's 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah. It could be that I'm setting up a call with a client that I have in Kobe, Japan, which is 17 hours difference from where I am, which means my 5 p.m. will be her tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. or whatever.
Something like that.
Okay. And so it's perfect timing. I can do a call at 5 p.m.
Sure.
And just wait for that glass of wine, but she's going to want more coffee in the morning. So, we're going to be together in sync.
And that's an example of how the world's changing.
Right. And it can be done. It's just a matter of what you do with it.
Yes. Yeah.
So let me ask you, as we come to close in a few minutes here, now we could stay on and talk about this forever, but I think the audience has other things they need to do today. So your book award says Humony Leadership, that's Humony, is timely, and they call it's an understatement. The content is valuable and necessary, and if implemented, they say, would go a long way towards recovery from the havoc wreaked upon the world because of the pandemic and people changing jobs and work from anywhere and dealing with all that. Humany Leadership is a significant work with an important mission, and this is the Nonfiction Authors Association Book Awards program. Well, first of all, congratulations on this, and it's an honor for me to have you on a program. So you and I had done in the past some shows under the theme of Strive and Thrive.
Thrive, yep.
So this is almost the same idea, but applied differently, isn't it?
It is. It's about creating workplaces that of wellness and harmony and reducing friction and reducing drama in the workplace in sort of that people can thrive. I mean, and that's one of the key elements here. I mean, one of the things I talk about is that, people don't want to be managed. I mean, nobody wants to be managed. And, I've talked about this with you before. And certainly no one wants to be micromanaged. So, a workplace where you have trust in the employees, where you're coaching them. I mean, one of the phrases I've come up with recently is no one wants to be micromanaged. Everyone wants to be micro-coached. And if you can take those opportunities and coach people, develop people, that will be a workplace where it'll overcome a lot of the issues that we were heading into before the pandemic, and that the pandemic just put on warp speed, basically, that we're witnessing. In addition to that, the pandemic has enabled people to stop and pause and think about, what role does work play in my life? And that's what's led to the Great Resignation, and even the quiet quitting trends of that. You know what? I don't need to commute 90 minutes twice a day. I don't need to spend 3 hours in my car on freeways and traffic jams. Even that means I have to reduce my lifestyle. Maybe I reduce my expenses. Maybe I take a job that doesn't pay as much, or maybe I move to a different part of the country where I don't get the same Silicon Valley salary that I used to have. But you know what? I don't have Silicon Valley expenses either. How's housing's cheaper, food is cheaper, schooling is cheaper, everything's cheaper. So, I can still have a good lifestyle, but I don't have to be in Silicon Valley to do so, or other places. I don't have to be in Houston. I don't have to be in New York City. I can find other ways of having a good life. And that's harmony to me. But you can forget about work-life balance. What people want is work-life harmony. And that's, like I said, people don't want to work 9 to 5. They want to get their job done, do a good job, but doesn't have to be in the employer's workplace. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 9 to 5. Maybe I work 9 to 3, look after my elderly parents for 2 hours, and I go back and work for 7 to 9. Well, that's my choice as a human being. From an employer standpoint, does it matter as long as you're getting the work done? And it's the quality and standards that we want, and you meet our deadlines? That's Humony.
Yeah, and I'm doing almost the same kind of thing in my little shop here in San Diego or wherever I am, because I can work from anywhere. And I've been working from anywhere for almost 20 years. But now I'm doing it on steroids. So I get up early because, I sleep well, and 5 o'clock or sometimes even earlier, I've had enough, get out of bed and look at the overnight news and stuff coming in from different places. And, by time 8 a.m. comes around, I've already been up 3-4 hours, coffee and showered, ready to go. And by the time my 12 or 1 o'clock comes, Joanna's saying, come on, we're going out for a walk.
Exactly.
And hey, I'm doing it. And then we come back 3:30 or so in the afternoon, and I don't know how fast the time goes, but between like 3:30 and cocktail hour 5, it just disappears. But I'm sitting in focused time and get a lot accomplished.
Yeah, and this is a worldwide phenomenon. And your audience shouldn't think that this is just U.S. Americans and things like that. I mean, McKinsey did research last year, 2022, came out in December, so about 45 days ago. They surveyed 16,000 people in Europe, and 1/3 expect to quit their jobs in the first 6 to 3 months of 2023. 1/3. And the reasons that they cited, some was related to compensation, but a lot of it was related to lack of career development, lack of career advancement, uncaring and uninspiring reasons. And the motivators for those who want to stay on the job included flexibility, meaningful work, and supportive coworkers. So these are factors, they're the same in the United States, in North America, in Europe, and people I've talked to in Asia, in Latin America. These are human desires that are cropping up now. And this is why the need to change your leadership style and your leadership mindset is so critical. Otherwise, you have short-term success, but you won't have long-term success.
Stephen Howard, thank you for, again, being on Global TV Talk Show. Before we leave, and this is going to be like a bombshell, so we can look forward to the next talk. Let's talk about executive pay. And I bring that up because I saw in the news that I get in the mornings from Axios, they had a chart. This is the Axios with Mike Allen authoring. I think he's the CEO, I'm not sure. And it showed executive pay from top companies. And without naming names, there's one guy who got paid in 2022, $264 million. Now, that was everything, I guess, stock, growth, and, whatever. Who the hell needs that much money in 1 year? And what about just giving everybody a raise and having contests of who wants to go to Bermuda or something?
I don't know. You could get me off on a tangent on that. Although we are fortunately seeing. I did see recently. Tim Cook at Apple took like a 40% cut on his compensation.
Yeah, he's down to 96 million.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but others. But yeah, it's we have a greed society. And you think about that, $264 million. There's probably about 264 working days a year. If you don't work weekends and you don't work holidays and blah, blah, blah. So you're basically getting paid $1 million a day. So what value do you bring to the organization? I don't know. Don't get me on a tangent about that.
Yeah, that's another chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a book.
It could be. It could be.
Humony, Humony, humanyleadership.com. Go learn more about Stephen Howard.
Thank you, Ed. Most appreciated.
We'll see you again on Global TV. Thank you.
Thank you.